but you're acting two-faced. Her body
Hey,
smells
hey, hey,
good,
hey,
but her
hey, hey,
breath
hey,
is too
hey, and good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, Black Conservative Podcast. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, aka the Batman, here in the city of Gotham. All right, I got a couple of things that I'm gonna go into tonight. First things first. Last weekend, NASCAR was here, and and I'm a huge, and most of you know that I am a huge NASCAR fan. That I am. That you know this, and what I think they did a really good job for it to be the first race to be for something of that magnitude to be ran in a major metropolitan. Okay, that's first and foremost. We had, and now according to reports, we had minimum issues or disturbances, minimal. Okay. Now, a lot of people would say, well, because NASCAR is here and they had a high police presence, security. I'm gonna tell you what all entities were involved. You had the Chicago Police Department, you had the Cook County Sheriff's Department, you had the Department of Homeland Security also involved in this. Okay. I mean, this is a huge thing for the city. Now, the thing that and if you're not, the fact that what I was hoping is that that the inner city, meaning the South and the West Side, they would get an idea, get a feel for another type of genre. Also, what we were hoping, what I was hoping for that also took place was that many people were able to afford to go to the race just for the experience. Now, here's the problem that I have with that right now. We can't fault NASCAR because NASCAR is an entity of its own. But what we can do is fault this jackass mayor, this political plant, as I choose to call him. This is what this is. The fact that he has that he has a tax on the city, entertainment tax, a luxury tax. Okay, so the idea that the fact that for one ticket, practically $300, starting at $300. Okay, $300. Okay, and going to upwards. Some tickets were selling upwards to 5,000. Okay. My issue is that what about the regular people who wanted to experience this, a different type of atmosphere, who basically couldn't afford it? Roughly, you figure $272, $300. That's somebody's car note. No pun intended, but that's somebody's car note. All truth be told. But I did watch the race. It was exciting. It's if you've never gone or been part of an event like that, you should expand your boundaries. No more, see more, do more, no more than the four corners of your home or your apartment or just the end of your block. Experience these particular things. Now there was one incident. Now this jackass broken, basically broken. Almost, it's not. That's a bad term. It's not really breaking in, but gained access. Let me rephrase that. He gained access to the road course, to the road course, and was running his car along the course. Okay, naturally, police arrived and this knucklehead was arrested and charged. Okay. Understand something that this is going to happen. That's why they have what they call security. Okay, security. But the overall thing was very nice, and I like the way that NASCAR set this up. I like the way that NBC done this also. A lot of the shots, they did a lot of aerial shots, and they did a lot of shots from the lake, looking at our beautiful Gotham City skyline. I don't care what anybody say. I love my city. The city of Chicago is the best city in the world. Point, hands down, point blank, period. And if you are from the Chi, you will agree with me. Even those that have moved away and live other places or transplanted, and you're from the Chi, especially from the South Side, wild hundreds. If you're from that part of the world, if you are from that part, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Now, moving on, I don't want to spend too much time on that. But what I do want to spend time on is a couple of other things. One of the topics I want to get into is us as a community. But when I say us as a community, and I'm just going to touch on that because I want to be able to have people chime in for this too. When we are talking about us as a community, we have to look at the issues that plague us also as people. Okay. And you all hear me you hear me quite sometimes. It appears that I'm beating up on women. It appears that I'm just completely putting the black woman down or destroying her. That's not what that's not what I'm doing. That's further from the truth. What I'm trying to do, ladies, is I'm trying to get some of you all to wake up and get out of your pettiness, get out of your emotions, get out of the typical bullshit that some of you tend to bring to the table. That's my point. That's my point. And the idea is to get some of you all to look at yourselves. Let's start with the first thing, because understand, I'm gonna throw some of these no good ass niggas under the bus too. And not only that, but I'm in the driver's seat of that bus. And when I run over them, guess what? I'm gonna put it in reverse and I'm gonna back up over them, put it in drive and run over them again and repeat. And if you're not understanding, it's please revert back to the first the first plan. Now, I'm gonna put the women aside for a moment. I'm gonna come back to you, but what I want to get into is us as a community, as black men. And see, here's the thing: as I said once before, some of you Negroes, some of you dirty ass Negroes, some of you dusty niggas, some of you no good niggas, and you all know, and you know who you are. You know who you are. I say that because you get with a woman, and then you bring a child into this world, and then here's the thing: some of you have no idea on how to function as a man, and not only that, but understand this too, but function as productive fathers. That is one of the biggest, and understand, we have to first of all look at the beginnings of different things. Okay, any fool can make a baby, but it takes a man to raise it. Okay, and some of you guys are out there constantly throwing your Johnson on the table, and you're creating these babies, and some of you are not taking full responsibility, and some of you who do have these children, you have no clue on how to raise them. The problem in that, why is that? Because nobody raised you. You didn't have the lesson plan, so you can teach the next generation, and so on and so forth. This is why we have the chaos that we have right now. And like I say, it's another, and this is a segue to a bigger problem. When we start looking at this as a whole, it starts with us. It starts with us as men. Okay. Now, granted, Some of us do come with some of our men, we come with baggage. We come with problems. Some of us come broken. We come with all types of things, but some of us, we have learned to suppress that in order to press forward, in order to uh, uh, bring in, close the gap, bring things together. See, one of the this is something that's not discussed in the Black community, because there are men out there that do so much, take on so much until they become they themselves will become overwhelmed, and sometimes we don't even know it because we've gotten so used to doing it. Some of us have gotten conditioned to doing these things, to the point to where we have no idea that we're overwhelmed. And then some of us crack, snap out, flip, lose our shit, flip our lid. All of this, this is where the Black woman comes in, to where if she understands the man, knows how to read that man, she's able to help him, for lack of a better word, help him unwind, help him download some of the things that he's carrying, help him to help him offload some of the burdens that he's carrying. Now, understand also too, sometimes we carry burdens that are not even ours. We take on responsibilities that sometimes that are not ours, but that's because that's how some of us are built, because some of us don't want to see other people fail. And when I say that, I'm referencing to where if a man comes into a relationship and there are children involved, and this woman may need help, but also too, she has to be willing to accept the help also. And now mind you, that's also if this is a true man who understands this, because understand this, if he gives your children any type of time, that is a courtesy, that is a favor. There's no law that says he has to partake in that. That's for the individual that you laid down and had them by. That's his job. Now, on the flip side, if that man decides to do that and this child or children refuses to accept his teachings, then there's nothing else for him to say or do. Not a single solitary thing. And this woman can't get mad when he doesn't, and when he no longer wants to be bothered with the child or children, when these children, when they don't want to comply, don't want to. First, the biggest thing that was where the breakdown is, and I say this all the time. My generation, okay, and I'm referencing people that were, but say pretty much they were born between 1960 and 1970, say 72, that have children or adult children. Technically, in all truthfulness, some of us dropped the ball, and then the funny part, once we dropped the ball, we went to scoop it up and kicked it out of the back of the end zone. And then what we do with it? Oh well, okay, it things like that happen. No, it doesn't. What has happened is that some of you have gone away from the way, have gone away from actual child rearing, actual child raising, actually educating your child, nurturing, grooming them into becoming productive individuals. This explains why these teenagers now, the ones that are going downtown, that Jackass Johnson, that's going to be his new name that's my new name for him. Jackass Johnson, when he gets up on the podium and he sounds like a complete fool, and I quote him, we're not we have to help these children. Look, first and foremost, help them how? When he says that these children, we can't treat them like animals, or we can't treat them like criminals. To a certain degree, yes, we can. Because when you're downtown destroying property, when you're downtown committing robberies, for example, sidebar, there is a crew of individuals, young people, who are on the divvy bikes and scooters robbing people. These are young people. Here's the other problem. I'm a parent. You're a parent. And you mean to tell me you have no idea where your 13-year-old child is at 10:30 at night? At 11:45 at night? At 12:10 in the morning? At 1:42 in the morning? You have no idea where your 13 or 14-year-old child is. That's asinine to me. Asinine. See, this is me. This is what I would do, and which is explain why I'm wearing my shirt, my Gotham Police shirt, because sometimes we have to use a heavy hand to get people to understand and to comply. We as parents are responsible. And when we don't take the responsibility, this is what you're seeing happen now is the result of that. When you fall, when you allow things to fall by the wayside, this is the type of conduct that you're going to get. Now, me personally, every last one of them, I would catch them, lock them up, and they would sit there, and then I would get addresses, and then I would send cars to each and every one of the individuals that are locked up and grab their parents, and I would lock their parents up too. See, there's a part to where there's a level of responsibility that has to be taken, and at some point, and even to a point, it has to be heavy-handed, because we're in a time now to where that is necessary. This is the part, going back to the part about the men, our men in the community, our fathers, and these fathers in the homes. A lot of this is the other thing. Leadership. See, one of the biggest problems between black men and black women is women want to be out front. They want to be leaders. Listen, let me explain something to you. That's not your place. That's not your role. It isn't. It is not. If there's a man in the home, he is the head of your house. Let me rephrase that. If there is a good man in your home, let me rephrase that. Let me correct myself. If there is a good man, he's a good man. And I know some of you are just, you got them googly eyes and, well, what the time's a good man? Well, when he manages things, understand something. The key word of a good man is that he knows how to manage things. He manages his life. He manages that woman. He manages that child or children. He manages his household. He manages his finances. Okay. And I want you all to earmark this word manage, because it's going to swing back around, because there's going to be two words I'm going to hinge on. There's a word managing, and then there's a word survival. And I'm going to get to that. That is a man, not as I remember, Georgia said something. He said, basically, like he said, not just dick in the house. He comes in, you're managing. And here's the thing. And I understand that we live in a 2-income home where the woman is working. Totally understandable. And even to a point where there may be just the woman in the home and she's raising children. But at the same time, she's doing the same thing. She is trying to manage all of these things. See, let's just be clear on something. Multitasking is not a skill. It's actually a flaw. It's a flaw. because you're trying to put too many things into play at once. Okay. While it's fresh in my mind, the phone lines are open if you have a comment on this particular topic. So if you have something you want to add to this, give me a call here at the studio at 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953. Now, when we when we talk about that part of managing, some people may say, well, okay, I've heard men say, well, this is what I do. I get up and I go to work and I provide this and I provide that. No, you get up and you go to work because you have an obligation to a household, nigga. That's why you get up and go. You have obligations. If you got that woman, those children, that's an obligation. And none of that, that's your responsibility. Not so much your job, but your responsibility. Responsibility. The other thing is another key point. Oh, and I'm just checking my notes, and just by it was, and this is another sidebar. It was mentioned to me. One of my listeners mentioned that they had trouble. So, Earl, can you do me a favor and tell me what other platforms that they can pick up the show? Okay? Well, if you YouTube, well, right now with YouTube, and when you do that, go to Intellectual Radio, click on that, and then subscribe. And then if and then if you're trying to find whichever show, you click on that, and then you'll get periodic alerts when the show is about to begin, particularly, especially mine, Black Conservative Podcast. So I just wanted to throw that out for listeners that they had trouble locating it. When we talk about this, when we go to this, a lot of things center around the man, center around him. Okay. That woman, whoever she is to complement him. And when I reference that, I understand better than most people that there are a lot of broken women out there. A lot of broken women. And let's be clear, fellas, let's also be clear. Sometimes we got to be truthful with ourselves. Sometimes we are and can be the contributor of some of our Black women being broken. Some of us are contributors to that. And we have to admit that. We have to open our eyes to these particular facts. We have to. And in order for us to address these things, we have to address things within ourselves. We have to start there. And then there are a lot of men that are broken, but some of them that are broken, you will never know because they mask it so well, because they continue on, they trug on, they carry on. This is what this is. And this is one of the things that's not talked about in the Black community. Sometimes we look at men being strong, but sometimes we have to ask ourselves, and ladies, you have to ask yourself, how did that man become who he is? How did he become such a strong man? 9 times out of 10, it was something that happened that forced him into that role, that made him become the man that he is, the strong man that he is. He became stronger so he could help you carry certain things that you yourself were unable to do. Unable. When we sit down, when we have, for those that have sons, okay, and I have 2 sons, and for those who have multiple sons, it's imperative that you communicate with your sons, teach them, educate them. Some of you all, you cannot be and then women are notorious for saying this. You can't be a weekend. You can't be a father 2 days out of 7. You're just a weekend dad. If that son, that male child that you help produce means anything to you, you are going to nurture, you're going to teach, you are going to guide. You're going to raise him, and the point being is that you're going to raise him to become to become an excellent individual and a strong man, and even to a point to where where he goes from a child from a child, young boy, teenager, grown man, and that he supersedes your own expectations, and that is what we expect from our children, to supersede our expectations, or as they say, the next generation, the next generation is supposed to be better than the predecessor. That's the plan. That's the whole point. But if we're sitting by on the sidelines and letting children raise themselves, which is what's going on, and this is why I have an issue with Brandon Johnson's policy on how to deal with this. When you say, well, we need to put money in the community, we need to open up communities, we need to do this, we need to do it. You can do all of that. The point being is that how do you get them to go? That's the point. That's the problem. How do you get them to go to these programs? How do you do that? You already facing an uphill battle. This is where it starts, in the home. And what has happened in the home is that we've turned these children over to AI, to our artificial intelligence, meaning technology is now raising our children. We've gotten away from sitting down or putting our children in front of educational programs and sitting there with them and teaching them. We've gotten away from the little flashcards that I remember I used to have, and that my children used to have, because there's a term called sight recognition. They see it and they recognize it, and then they can function. When you have children that are slow developing, for the fact the fact of the matter that there are children right now, because of their developmental skills, some children are not learning to speak their first words until to the age of 4 or 5. They're coming. When I say speaking, I'm talking about clearly and putting cognitive sentences together. The age of 4, sometimes 5, and they're not able to do this. But if you're sitting down and you're teaching, this is where we have to dig deep in our community and invest. If you're talking about investing, we have to invest in ourselves. We have to invest in our children, because make no mistake, white people have been doing it since they got here, investing in their children, investing in that, investing in their children. This is what they do. This is how it's done. We have to put aside certain things. We cannot continue to carry certain levels of guilt, hurt, anger, trauma. We have to, one point or another, lay all that shit down, put it in a box, tie it up, put it in the garbage, whatever it is. But in order for us to become productive people, certain things we have to leave behind. We have to. Because what happens is that how are we able to teach our children how to navigate this world if we ourselves are not giving them the navigational tools? That's like putting a man at the wheel of a ship when he's never even seen one. But you expect him to navigate through these waters and coves and channels. How does that work? How is that supposed to work? How does that work? I say again, invest in our children. This is what I'm talking, and when I said it, I'm talking about I'm talking about the black man. Invest in your children. Invest. Teach them how to function. Because you out here in these streets, understand, make no mistake about it. The streets have an expiration date. You be out there long enough doing whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to run across that date. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about that. It will and can happen. So, now I told you all to focus on these two words. Okay. One word was maintain, and the other word was survival. Okay. Now, when I say that, I'm gonna get into this is what I'm getting into, and I'm talking about um, finances. Okay, we have to understand. We need to realize the difference between the two. Between the two, maintaining and survival. I want you all for a minute to think about this for a second. If you're living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, you got bills coming out the wazoo. You're trying to figure out how you're going to meet this or meet that, your food or whatever the case may be, and you have little money. Ask yourself, are you maintaining or are you surviving? That is the question that you have to ask yourself. Are you maintaining or surviving? And I can answer that relatively simply by saying most of you are just surviving. And that's not how we're supposed to do this. Let me tell you what the difference is. Maintaining me is a act of keeping things or gathering things, keeping things in a certain way, a certain place, meaning such as your finances. You want to be able to have enough in the bank, enough finances to where if something happens, it's not going to hurt you. You can survive. Say, for the sake of argument, your refrigerator takes a shit. It goes out, or your stove, or you got to put your car in the shop. You don't want to be in a position to decide, well, do I eat this week or do I get the car fixed? Do I catch the bus or do I let the lights go? This is something that you all have to, I implore you to really think about hard. Think about these things. Am I surviving or am I maintaining? If it means that you have to change the narrative, change the way that you do things, change your finances, change your move to another position at your job, or get another job to where you're able to survive. And the best analogy I can really give you. Think of it this way: you're on a ship, and the ship goes down and it sinks. And you have a life, and you have you have a life vest on, and now you're in the water. You're in the deep, dark, cold water, pitch black, and it's pitch black on the ocean. Okay, and you waiting, you're kicking your feet just to stay afloat. Ask yourself this question: are you maintaining or are you surviving? Now, I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna put another scenario. If you are in a lifeboat after the ship has sunk, and they have water, they have food and water. You have a vest on, and naturally, there's going to be other people there. But then there's someone that is taking charge on maintaining order. Are those people? Is that person are those people? Are those people and the person that is that is going to take charge? Are they surviving or are they maintaining? Now I'm gonna give you the answer. If you're in the water and you're kicking your feet and you got the life vest on and you're kicking your feet, you are surviving. You're trying to survive the night until help arrives. That's like your paycheck. You're going from paycheck to paycheck. You're just surviving. You're treading water until the next paycheck comes. Then what happens? Then you're treading water again till the next paycheck comes. Now, if you're in the lifeboat, with provisions, enough provisions to take care of everyone, plus you have someone that is in charge, that's maintaining. Hey, we have to maintain what we have. We have to stick together. We have to maintain until the rescue ship arrives. Think about that for a moment. You're in the water. You're treading water. You got a life vest on. You're treading water, and you're trying to survive until somebody comes. But you're in a lifeboat, and you're maintaining until help arrives. This is the ideology that's something that we have to look at and we have to understand. In order to change the mentality of survival, we have to change the narrative of what we're doing. We have to change that. And most of you are just surviving. Surviving. You may say, well, I got enough food. You're surviving. If your finances are not where they should be, I didn't say where you want them to be, where they should be, you are surviving. And understand something. It takes more work to survive than it does to maintain. It takes more work to survive. Now, don't get me wrong. There were points in times where all of us have been there, where it seemed like we were surviving. I know, Earl, you've been there. You've been to a point to where you treading water. You're surviving. You're trying to make it to the next payday. We've all been there, or at least most of us. Okay, we all have. And then you realize I'm just treading water. So what do I need to do? What do I need to do? I'm surviving. I'm surviving until this rescue comes along. Now, when the rescue comes along, you have to think about, what are you going to do next? How do I change the narrative? Because only you and you alone are the one that's in control of that. You and you alone. Think about this as you go through the next 5.5 months of this year. Hey, do I, and I don't, and I don't want people to to take this and say, oh, well, you know what? Next year I'm going to do something different. Look, no one is promised tomorrow. No one is promised tomorrow. Do what you can today. If you can change the narrative on how you're going to manage and no longer, let me rephrase that. You have to decide if you're going to continue to survive and tread water, or if you're going to get into the mentality of maintaining. See, it's a lot easier to maintain something, easier to do. It's work, but not as much work as it is to survive, because you're in the water. You gotta keep your feet moving, otherwise you may sink. Or none of that, you may fall asleep in the water and drown. Where if you're in the lifeboat and you're maintaining, you can lay down. I won't say lay down, but you can sleep a little bit you could have a little bit of a breather until the rescue ship comes. This is one of the things we have to think about when we talk about our finances, when we talk about our home, when we talk about various other things. Maintaining, survival. What is it going to be? What is it going to be? It's something that, but think about that. Think about that. Now, it was the other thing that was brought up, and about a week and a half ago, the Supreme Court made some rulings, and one of the two that I'm gonna get into. One of them had to do with the Alphabet City people, and the other one had to do with affirmative action. Now, For most of you who do not understand what affirmative action it was what is a act that was it that a policy that was enacted to where um when you when sir whether it's a school or a job, the entity had to have a certain number of people of color or minorities in their in their pool. For example, at a particular at certain jobs, affirmative action took place because, hey, you have a bunch of white people and then there's no black people or no Hispanic people. So what affirmative action did is that, hey, you have to have a certain amount of people of color part of your business. Schools, certain schools, affirmative action, you had to admit a certain amount of blacks into your schools, into your programs. Now, just to the sidebar. Now, to a certain degree, affirmative action was good, but at the same time, it hurts, it hinders, because here's the thing: when we look at it, first of all, let me back up. If there was an amendment to the Constitution concerning blacks or others, affirmative action is not necessary. Why? No, wait, hold on. My engineer just looked at me. I'm gonna explain this, because if we're all supposed, if everything is, if there's a level playing field, certain policies you don't need to put in place, because everybody gets a shot. Everybody. If there's a point, if there's a level playing field, say you want to go to Harvard, you should be allowed to go to Harvard, not based on your color or merit. Your grade. It should be or merit. You should be able to apply to that institution because that's where you want to go to study law or to get your doctorate or whatever it is. The Supreme Court ruled that, ruled that affirmative action. Well, let me rephrase that. The Supreme Court did away with affirmative action. In this day and age, they did away with it because they felt that it was first of all, it was no longer necessary, and at the same time, it became bias. Affirmative action became bias. This is how this unfolded. Now, this is directed at, well, go ahead. What'd you say, Earl? Well, because this is now I didn't write the opinion. Now this was one of the justices that, one of the justices wrote the opinion, and I agreed with him, because when he goes on to say, if we talk about a level playing field, certain policies are not necessary. If everybody is allowed to apply to this school, if everybody's allowed to work at this particular job, regardless of their color, why do we need certain policies put in to govern race? No, it's not level. No. But the point being is that when with the fact that this is what they're pushing back on it, because they have to start somewhere and saying that we have to change policies. We have to change certain things in the Constitution to make it level. Not only that, but part of the opinion was when he went on, and Clarence Thomas, when he made the statement about he was one of the individuals that voted for, that ruled that affirmative action should be done away because of the times that we're living in. Everybody should be able to get in, and we no longer can use race as a reason for letting people in or keeping people out. This is what, now, I didn't write the opinion. I'm just pulling certain points out of his
Can I say something? This
yeah,
whole
go.
thing really pisses me off. I'm gonna tell you why. You're not gonna find one single white person in America, not one, that's gonna tell you that they weren't admitted to a college because of affirmative action. You're not gonna find out one
Wait, say that
single
again?
one. You're not gonna find one single white person, not one, that says they were not admitted to a college because of affirmative action. It's not gonna happen.
No.
Not one. Secondly, what you don't realize is that when enrollment is down, tuition goes up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And having affirmative action helped increase enrollment in colleges where some of these people wouldn't normally go to these colleges, right? So now tuition is going to go up because enrollment is going to be down, right? And thirdly, let me ask you a question. If a person is black
Mm-hmm.
and he don't have that tuition, what do you think going to happen? You think they're going to say, oh, well, we got affirmative action, you black, so you think that's going to happen? Do you really think that they're going to say, you ain't got your tuition, okay, you black, so you good? You think that's going to happen? Do you think that a person's GPA drops down to 000, and they're going to say, well, because you black, you good?
But see,
you still have to maintain a certain level of
no,
GPA,
I agree.
First of all, and second of all, you better have that tuition.
Right. No, but I agree. I'm not disputing that part, because here's the thing, and I agree with that.
Only thing affirmative action did, the only thing it did was say you cannot deny a student simply because of his race.
Right.
That's all it did.
That's all it did.
Nothing else. That's all it said. Right. But they still had to meet certain qualifications.
Right.
And you can deny a student because of his GPA.
Oh yeah, but that's the whole point.
You can deny a student because he ain't got that tuition, but you can't deny him because of race. That's all affirmative action was.
Right. That's what it was. I'm not disputing that. I am not disputing that part. At that part. But to piggyback off what Earl said, is that also too, there's certain criteria that even if you do get in, you have to maintain that. You have to meet those criteria. He just said, well, what, it's about the tuition. It's because we live in such a society that that continues to disenfranchise us as Black people, that continues, and I say that emphatically, continues to do this. There are certain policies that need to stay in place, but at the same time, if you are amending certain areas of the Constitution, that would immediately do away with other policies, because it's no longer it's redundant at that particular point. As long as the term 3/5 of a man, how can you say, or the founding fathers, when they wrote all men are created equally, but yet and still the very same people, meaning Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, even Benjamin Franklin, these are people that owned slaves, for crying out loud. But yet you're saying that we're still 3/5 of a man. We are still considered chattel property. The point being is, as long as that particular language is in the Constitution, certain policies need to stay in place. Unless you change that, you cannot change the other. That's the proverbial term of putting the cart before the horse. That is the proverbial thing. How can you say, well, we want equality, but you own slaves? How does that make sense? How? Now, that's the thing. Here's another, and here's another little action item that too. They did a poll, and this is one of the things to why my show is very important, and why it's important to me and important to others. they've done a poll and found and a poll amongst blacks as far as their political as not political aspect, but their political stance. And do you know, or did you know, that right now, currently, there are more conservative blacks now than there have in the last 50 years. Right now, they're saying that majority of black Americans are conservative, or they're saying that they're at a 40% clip. 40% of black blacks are conservatives. Meaning, and when I say conservatives, that means they're Republican. That means that's the gateway to being a Republican or a Republican. That's the gateway. 40%. They found that 40% of blacks in America are conservative blacks. 40%. 40%. When I saw that number, I wasn't so much surprised or astonished, but what's happening is that the tide is turning, because a lot of some of us are starting to wake up and realize that the Democrats are for themselves. They're not for anybody but themselves. That's it. And when we talk about that, and even for those who are not, who are not politically inclined, or who are not part of, or who choose not to be to engage in politics, but it's important whether you choose to engage in it or not. It is important to understand the political climate that you live in, because understand this: certain levels of politics affect you because that particular group of people can enact certain policies that can and will affect you. Make no mistake about it. The Democrats are the very ones who are cutting and slashing Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, SSI, or SSI, same thing, Social Security, and SSDI. This is the same entity. They are cutting people's money. These Democrats are doing this. These are the same people who are telling you how much of your own money that you are to get a month. These are the very same people. There are points to where you either as Martin Luther King said, you either stand up for something, you'll fall for anything. Now, I'm not saying that anybody, if you're not a part of the, you don't want to engage in politics, that's fine. I mean, it's no harm, no foul. But it is imperative that you do know and understand what is going on around you, because certain policies can be put in place that will affect you if you're not paying attention, if you're not up on it. If we're not up on it. So, these are a couple of things that I want you all to, really take to heart and think about, and just a brief recap, going back to the first part of the show, is that we have to start doing a better. We have to start now, or somewhere, doing a better job, and with each other, understanding one another, understanding that sometimes that we're dealing with broken women, and we have to try to understand that. But at the same time, these broken women, you can't keep carrying these particular things. You can't keep walking around with shards of glass in your pocket and doing harm to yourself. And I mean that, and I say that rhetorically, I should say. I say that rhetorically, and when I say that, when meaning that some things, put those shards of glass down. Stop hurting yourself. Look forward. If that man comes in and he wants to take those shards of glass from you, let him, because he's trying to help you heal. Women, pay attention to that man. And most importantly, some of you all, use your mouth less and use your ears more. Use them more. So with that being said, I'm getting the one to go. I'm getting the one to go as if I'm on the aircraft carrier. Time to sit back, relax, and strap it down. So that's all the time that we got here on tonight's show, Black Conservative Podcast. Hey, I hope you all enjoyed the show. And with that being said, not my monkey, not my circus.
Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. Roger. Ready to move out.